All right, welcome everybody to another wrestling podcast. This week, I'm blessed to have some amazing people with me. I've been doing a lot of the interviews lately, but we have Credo with us tonight, your Mark father, and we have another special guest. But
Excuse you. What? I'm here, Jonathan. But excuse me. What?
ex- excuse me,
I don't know.
Excuse me! That's
ladies.
my line, guys. That's all I got. That is mine.
Well, if you haven't figured out by now, we have the incredible, the amazing Vickie Guerrero joining us tonight. This is a dream come true. Absolutely. I'm not at a loss for words often, but tonight really is incredible. And we just want to thank you so much for coming on and joining us tonight.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet. Where were y'all when I needed friends when I was on the big stage? No, but
Well,
thank you. I'm honored to be here with you guys tonight.
Well, you yourself are doing your very own podcast right now. Excuse me, the Vickie Guerrero Show. So let's get right into it. How's it been in the podcasting world? How do you like going over and and having your own format to talk to people?
Gosh, I love doing the research. I love learning about people and everything about them. I have to give a lot of credit to Jerry because he's taught me how to go along the way. I didn't do this before. So when Jerry said, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" I'm like, no. I mean, because, I've always been involved with being interviewed, but not being the interviewee. So I love it. I've had some great guests, and I think you guys can relate that you always worry about content. You're always like, okay, who's next, and can they make it, and all the scheduling conflicts. So I think that's like the low of the podcast world. But when everything works out, it's a great week.
No, yeah, for sure. Now, we mentioned, you have a legacy in the wrestling world, but a legacy of being one of the most hated characters in wrestling. How do you think you were able to achieve that? And how do you feel about having that high honor of being hated in the wrestling world? Because it is a true honor to be one of the most hated people.
Oh, thank you. I think I was hated when I first started just because people thought of me as Eddie's wife. Why am I there? And I had a lot of shoes to fill. And the first and foremost person I wanted to make Eddie proud because this was his legacy that he left behind. But I think watching him a lot and kind of being involved with, his character and always being around him, I didn't know I was learning things until he passed. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like why he would do certain things. But I love being a heel. They tried me as a baby, and it was actually really boring. When Vince and Johnny Ace are like, "Do you like being a baby?" And I'm like, "No, I want to be what Eddie was. I want to be the bad guy." And I love it. I love getting the audience in the palm of my hand and, being nice. And I love taking that switch on them and they go home just pissed off at me. And I think that was just such a high for me that it was something I look forward to every night that I got to perform.
Well, and speaking of Eddie's legacy and also your legacy, we know in the world of wrestling, it comes out all the time. People talk about how much Eddie influenced, even today, Peyton Royce, we've got Sasha Banks. They're constantly, giving nods to Eddie. Does it feel strange to you that, especially with the network and other things like that, that your legacy may be creating all new people that want to become you someday? Do you feel like a tense? I mean, it's got to make you feel good whether or not they're getting into it to be a heel or not. But you yourself are inspiring people these days.
Gosh, you are so sweet. I'm gonna start blushing. I think it's important in this industry, and I tell, I just finished going to AEW, and I worked with the girls, and I interviewed the girls as well. And I think it's important that we all share our knowledge. Because back then when I was, starting out, a lot of people were my mentors and they gave me a lot of advice and a lot of education, especially like Edge and Dolph. When they gave me pointers, I really took those seriously. And that's something that I always wanted to share with the next woman or guy that I worked with was, just sharing the knowledge and making them feel good and comfortable like I did. And so Yeah, when people say, I want to be just like you, I'm like, no, you don't. But I know where they're coming from, and I'm very grateful about that. And if I ever get to perform again, I will also share the knowledge. But then also, I think you have to keep your heart open in this business because there's always something to learn, and times are always changing with storylines and characters and how the product flows. And I think it's just important for everyone to always keep their heart open and their mind and be open to learn new ideas.
Sure. Now you mentioned Edge. I know one of the biggest things they say in pro wrestling is never say never. But for what happened with Edge, and I know you recently talked a little bit about it on your show, excuse me, the Vickie Guerrero Show, downloaded on all podcast platforms, everybody.
But thank you.
Another cheap pop right there. So, but I mean, something with Edge, and then it also happened with Daniel Bryan not too long ago too, to where these guys retired. These guys, ended their career, but now, I mean, with the advancements in medical technology and whatever else, these guys are getting a second chance. What was your initial reaction when you heard that he returned? I mean, it was been 9 years pretty much now, right?
Yeah, when Edge did his big retirement speech, that's when we were still together, and it was heartbreaking because that was my guy, that was our stick, to go out there. And to see him come back, of course, when he was on my show, I don't think he knew he was coming back, or if he did, he didn't tell me, which I still have a beef with him to talk about. But, to see the Royal Rumble and to watch it and to see Edge come back, I actually got teary-eyed because this man worked so hard, for his legacy, and to realize that it stopped without his decision was really heartbreaking for everyone around him to accept. So, with medical technology and the guys, kind of doing things differently and getting themselves, I guess recovered, I think it's amazing, that this is happening and these guys can come back and, keep on working.
So you mentioned that you just went to AEW and you were helping give back to those women, and you were with the WWE for 10 years, and you off and on and even longer, but the bulk of your time was that 10-year decade period, which is an incredible feat. But we were starting to see then the rise of the women and their new role in wrestling. Do you think that there's much more that they can do? I mean, they've main evented WrestleMania. We've done, is it just, do you feel that it's just, I don't want to say that it's leveled off, but do you think that they're finally on a level playing field as far as wrestling goes?
Well, that's a good point because, we had the first Women's Royal Rumble, and then there was Evolution, and then they main evented, WrestleMania. And it's almost like, in my opinion, that it was so fast that we didn't get a chance to really enjoy those moments because it was like one after the other. The women were, headlining and getting their own pay-per-views, and which is amazing. And it's so incredible that they get the opportunity. But now, I look back now, it's like, what is there left for them to do? Because now they can still continue their legacies of main eventing in WrestleMania. And you see Charlotte Flair and, Asuka, just doing incredible jobs on the show. I guess the next thing you wonder is do they make it an all-female, wrestling show, or do they, have their own network? It's there's not too many things I can think of, and I could be wrong of what else there is for them to do, like you said. And I kind of shared that thought with someone the other day because they gave these women the opportunity really fast, and now it's we sit here going, okay, what's next? So yeah, that's I wish it would have kind of slowed down where we could enjoy each moment and kind of let that soak in. But that's the way it worked out. But it's always exciting that now they have more opportunities on pay-per-views, and with WrestleMania coming up, and then other products having women do exciting things. I think it's fun to watch, and I'm really proud of all the women.
Sure. Now, 2019 was a big year for pro wrestling, especially with the launch of AEW. Do you feel, I think a lot of the wrestling fans love it to where it's that, it's the other choice, it's more variety. It's not just the same company putting on the same show or, multiple shows, but giving the wrestling audience that other choice to pick from. Do you think, AEW, from what they've been doing, has been a great has it been a great step in the right way for competition, if you will, for just away from WWE?
Yeah, first, to add to that thought, I think that any kind of promotion that's opposite of WWE is good for business because it gives everyone that competition and it keeps everyone on their toes. You have NWA and Impact and New Japan Pro Wrestling and, AEW. There's so many exciting, products that are happening. I think it's great for the fans because they do have a choice. But as far as, what's true to AEW, and I've gotten to see this backstage and to talk to everyone, is that they're just being themselves. They're doing what they can do. They're not trying to, do WWE. WWE they're established and they're the main guys on the block. But AEW is proving that because of what they know and do, they're succeeding each week, and the ratings are getting better, and they get the roster, and it's getting better and better. Like last night's show was just incredible. And so I think that, you can't compare them yet because they just started, and we have to give them a chance. But when I see them, and I see them each week, and I see the evolution that they're making, I think it's just incredible that, Cody and Tony Khan and Brandy and all the agents, they're really just pulling together and valuing the superstars and letting them be who they want to be. And I think that says a lot. In their schedule, they work one day out of the week and then they have the pay-per-view, once every 3 months. I think that says a lot because the guys can rest. And you see these guys backstage that I used to work with, and they don't have like the tired eyes, and they're rested and they can spend time with their families. And I think that when they have that, then it really shows in their performance and they're having a good time out there. So there is quite a bit of difference, with the scheduling of WWE and AEW. I like that schedule of AEW. I go back there and I get excited. I'm like, God, I would love to do this, So, I'm excited for them, and they've worked hard, and they have a lot to prove, and they have a lot of work to do. But you got to start somewhere. And from what I've seen, I'm a big fan, and I'm rooting them on every week.
Now, we see in the background there's some Vickie Guerrero merch that we have back there. Some really amazing memorabilia. I am the proud owner of the Excuse Me Vickie Guerrero shirt. I will be honest. I have that currently. What did it feel like? To me, that's how you made it. Like, I'm sure everybody's different. Maybe the first time they wrestled at the Garden or whatever. But for me, the merchandise is really where it. So how did it feel to see that, a T-shirt, Eddie had probably 1 million of them and action figures and all of that. So how did it personally feel for you whenever you saw, because I'm sure that you're part of that process, right? Like they bring you the mock-ups, or how does that work?
In WWE, I wasn't. If anything, I kept begging them to get me a shirt. And what they came up with, I wasn't really excited about. And actually, they only kept it online for like a month or two. And so that was kind of the politics too that I went through with WWE, because some guys would have 2, 3, 4 shirts, and and even Edge and Dolph and Michelle McCool were like, man, like, you need a shirt. And I'm like, oh, no, don't worry about it. But then, I started thinking, I started seeing my, what my character was doing. And I'm like, yeah, I do want a shirt. That would really mean a lot. But I have more shirts now than I did with WWE, because Pro Wrestling Tees makes them, which I'm very grateful for. But I think my biggest accomplishment was getting my first doll. I think that was something that, I was really proud of, and I got to make 4 with WWE, and I love the opportunity that they gave me, to have that. So, yeah, I think when a doll, and you go, especially when you go to Walmart or Walgreens and you see me there, I'm like, what? But you see people around you, like, kind of looking, they're like, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. So I have some fun with it.
Well, I just want to say, growing up, we didn't have dolls. We had action figures, Vickie. It was action figures.
I'm a girl, though, Steve.
I know. Well, you did mention, the excitement with AEW. Do you feel like you have any unfinished business in wrestling? Could we possibly see you anywhere anytime soon?
Absolutely. I miss the ring every day, and I've expressed to AEW that I would love to be a part of it, and it's just timing and what they want to, what they're ready for, and they're the ones that are running the show. All I can do is say, hey, I love your product. I love the superstars. I love what y'all stand for, and I've expressed it, and it's in God's hands. I mean, all I can do is pray about it and believe in it, and whatever happens. But I'm keeping myself busy, while I wait for an answer.
Well, I'm glad you said that. This is how the business works here. It's the perfect segue. But you just mentioned you're keeping busy. So what is Vickie Guerrero doing when she's not podcasting and when she's not being a part of wrestling? What are some of your passions outside of the wrestling world?
Right now I'm writing my autobiography about Eddie, life with Eddie and life after Eddie. And we're almost getting ready to finish the proposal to go to New York and sell the book. I have a great publisher and a great editor and a literary agent, and they're working really hard, and they make a great team for me. So my story is, Eddie got to write his book. And so I really wanted to show my side, because I think there's a lot of people out there that live with people that had drug abuse and alcoholism issues, and raising, kids and being a single parent. I really have a lot to say, because that life meant so much to me and how I survived. So for my book, I'm talking about the great days with Eddie and the dark days. And even my girls are just real big supportive, because there's kids too that are involved in this kind of life that happens, with a person that's going through their issues. So it's about survival, and, sharing my story and giving a little piece of knowledge for someone else to know, hey, survival is possible. Love can, be recreated again, and family can be reunited. And I think that's really important for me to share.
Oh, definitely. Now, also on the other stuff that you're doing, I understand you filmed your first short film this weekend with Echo Films. Anything you can kind of tell us? We're doing our research. See,
yeah, thanks. I just finished my filming a short film with Echo Films here in Houston, and I loved it. And I've been taking acting for about a year and a half now. Aside from WWE, when you work there, when I left there, I said I really want to continue my work in front of the camera. So I've been working on my craft. And I just got a agent in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who's getting me ready to submit for auditions. And, so that's always something I'm doing during the week, is taking acting classes. And I do Comic-Cons and conventions, and there's also the wrestling shows that call and book me. So I do those. And then I do crafts. So I'm always I'm getting ready to go to a farmer's market in 2 weeks and sell my wine bottles. I paint, I scrapbook, I make wreaths. I'm just a homebody too, so I kind of do it all.
That's incredible. Now, we know that you said that you're not quite done with the wrestling business yet, and we're very happy to hear that. When you're watching wrestling, there's so much of it these days. There's, we've mentioned the two big names, but there's also Ring of Honor, there's NWA, there's Impact, there's independents all around. Is there anybody out there that you see right now that you think deserves the managerial services of Vickie Guerrero? Is there anybody you have your eyes on?
I have my eyes on everybody. How's that? I asked WWE. I actually asked them 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years, if I could come back. I didn't get an answer, and I respect them. They have, a great roster that they're working with. WWE was my home. That's where my comfort zone is, to be there. But, NWA, I love their product. I'm a big fan. I actually interview a lot of their superstars, for their show. And then there's Impact, which is pretty cool too, So even if New Japan wanted something, which I know the language barrier is a little different, but I'm open to anything. I miss the ring every day. And whether it's behind the scenes or in the ring, or managing someone, it's all in my heart. So if I ever got offered anything, I would be open to listen.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, Vickie, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to tell everybody out there, though, go on Google, the Vickie Guerrero Show, subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, all podcast platforms. Get out there, make sure you let her know you're subscribing to the show. Also, I think fans can follow you on VickieGuerrero.net and follow you on Twitter at Vickie Guerrero. Did I miss anything? Anything else where fans can keep up with you?
Instagram is Guerrero_Vickie. I have a website that's VickieGuerrero.net, and it has my podcast and also merchandise. And I'm going to be at WrestleCon in April. Are y'all going to be there?
Yeah, right around the corner from where I work, so I'll be stopping in.
Oh, wonderful! So I'm raffling off a piece of Eddie's work because I also volunteer in San Antonio, Texas, for the Salvation Army for the Family Emergency Shelter. So every year I raffle something, and that money goes to the proceeds of the families. That's something else I did. I forgot.
Well, there you go. Well, that's great. I know all the fans will be interested.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have been so much fun, and thank you. I'm honored to be on your show.